Welcome to the Posture Report. I'm your host, Dr. Klein, and we're going to be talking about gut health and prostate health today. Now, I really like that I've given myself a week limit on these episodes because I tend to run down deep rabbit holes, just like last time. But nociception, there's a lot more I can go on then, and I'm going to return to that topic. But everything has been fitting very well, and the very first two postures, the very first episode we talked about, the runway model posture and the cheerleader posture, are all going to fit really well into this one actually. And you're thinking, well, runway models and cheerleaders don't have prostate issues. Again, remember that those posture types are not just women but men also. And this is more about gut health as well, and just reducing inflammation. The gut and prostate have a lot to do together. So we're going to talk a little about those two things. It's a good slide I wanted to start with here, just to show you the pelvic floor muscles, which is actually maybe the major topic here, because we're talking about biomechanics. How can your movement, how you're holding yourself, and how you're breathing, even how you're exercising and walking, little things, can affect your gut. Either make it irritated or help eliminate, reduce inflammation, and healing. And I also like this picture of the diaphragm. So we're going to come back to this one, talk a little bit about how the pelvic floor and your diaphragm fit into the decompression stance. So yes, in the playlist there'll probably be an exercise video to go along with this. And when I'm researching these topics and I'm watching videos and I'm reading articles, I'm just looking at the information that's already out there, and I'm just hacking the workouts that they're already providing. So I'm looking at the pelvic floor exercises, thinking about how I would do them or how to apply them in a foundation training sort of way, taking my understanding of the spine and just introducing that into that. So you may already be familiar with several of these pelvic floor exercises. We're just going to talk about them because we can always do something better, and that's one thing I've noticed foundation training is getting better and better at it, because if you're doing it wrong, you're not going to get any benefit, and it might even make things worse. We always want to be doing things right. So breathing, pelvic floor, we'll go over that in that video. But when I do the decompression stance, I can feel the pelvic floor muscles when I really concentrate, and it helps me actually get more of a narrow stance. The wider the legs are, I feel like the hips turn out an extra rotation, and we can't engage the pelvic floor, and it just tends to bottom out and not hold us. And that depends on your posture type already, like athletic hip, lower cross syndrome, the cheerleader posture, probably decent pelvic floor activation, poor diaphragm activation, and the opposite with the runway model, where they're opening up their shoulders, so they're opening up, they're engaging the diaphragm, but the pelvic floor muscles are not beneath the spine because the hips are forward, so they're not being activated as well. We need them working together because there's a third element to gut health here, and that is neurology. So let's start there. Let's go all the way up here, the very beginning. Now, just looking at the neck. So what's up with your gut? So we could look at even the curve of the neck. I can see a reverse curve over here on the right side, and we can know that, okay, this is sympathetic stimulation of the autonomic nervous system. That's shutting off parasympathetic. That goes to your gut, like the vagus nerve. That's why we like to adjust atlas. Adjusting atlas can affect your gut just as much as Dr. Klein going in there doing advanced stretching, working on your sacrotuberous ligament or obturator internus and all those muscles that can help release imbalances in the pelvic floor. And that's my job. But I actually think it's more important that we just learn to activate the pelvic floor, because we're always going to have imbalances left to right. Some people might get cancer on one side of the prostate or the other. It could all be torsion of the pelvis. But simply activating, strengthening those muscles might be enough to help us out there. But we'll see changes in the spinal curves based on pathology. A lot of times we think that the posture just accompanies the pathology. Maybe the posture was there, or there was neurological stress there, and the body took on the posture. Sometimes the body takes on postures to try to remove neurological stress because the body wants symmetry. So we talked a lot about that in the first 3 episodes, mechanoreception, how your body craves symmetry. So if something's misaligned, the rest of your body will compensate. The loving brother relationship to level us out. Another one on the neck here. We talked about sympathetic, parasympathetic. So less stress on the brainstem here with the nice cervical curve. But if we have a reverse curve, we're getting changes there. We're getting stress on the spinal cord. If you have a change in one area of the spinal canal and posture, we're going to have changes elsewhere. We can't just affect one area without the rest being affected. That's why we really push these whole body active stretches like foundation training. Here's one of Crohn's disease. Now we know that's related to the gut, so we're making that connection between not just the nerves, but maybe there's some reasons behind these bowel diseases we have. Like everybody has these issues today, and some of us don't even know that we have. We just assume, that we just have an allergy, or we just can't handle gluten. There's all these little things. Maybe it's just, of course, eating good really helps us, and we can feel those changes. Then you have like a slice of pizza and you feel awful. It's like, well, there's 2 thoughts there. It could be that your body's become more pure, so now it recognizes toxins more, and that's definitely truth to there. Or it could be that we don't really help the gut heal through motion. So yeah, you're fine as long as you're eating things that are not toxic to you. But when you do have to handle something like that, and we all do, whether it's just from the environment, not even what we're ingesting, just getting sick sometimes, we're more susceptible to those things. So movement is really important there to help make us stronger so we can handle more variety of foods when we don't have choice on what we can eat. We're very lucky in this country to have a variety of options, but that might not always be the case. So it's best to fix what we can as far as movement and strength, getting good at the basic things like moving, breathing, hinging at the hips. So changes in the neck curve here, we see the reverse curve with Crohn's disease, less likely probably with somebody who has a healthy curve in the neck. And I put the cheerleader posture here because they're one that drives back, right? They really retract with that. Almost the opposite curve, right? In the lower back, the hyperlordotic curve and anterior pelvic tilt. Here's just some postures to show that we just don't really know sometimes with these different diseases. Another one is like Parkinson's, unknown cause. I think it's genetic. And we see the posture, we see the neurological stress. We don't know what causes this. Well, what if it's just chronic stress on the brainstem from imbalanced musculature over time? I'd like to propose, if nobody else has it believed factor, it's just an environmental factor, then posture and how you're holding yourself is an environmental factor to a point. We can't just blame genetics on everything. And even if those are the factor, we can still strengthen or remove neurological stress and stimulating your proprioception, because that's what attacking that cerebellum, that demyelination in the cerebellum is what's going on there with Parkinson's. So we're creating good new neural pathways by constantly lifting and decompressing and working on our proprioception. That's definitely a way to balance Parkinson's, even if it's set in already. But prevention is the key here. Not here to talk about that today, though. Just giving you some examples. We already proposed this. So what if the sickness, what comes first, posture or the sickness? So again, we'll make another video on bridges are good for the pelvic floor. I have a different version of doing them. They're a lot like the supine founder, because you can do a bridge without engaging the pelvic floor. There's no special magical exercises, unfortunately, right? There's just certain moves that make it a little easier to feel them, because you could do it even if you're doing CrossFit. And there was this one post I read from a physiotherapist who was really concerned about CrossFit athletes and the pelvic floor muscle, especially women who tend to be a bit more hypermobile, using their motion to lift these heavy weights and really not engaging the pelvic floor muscles. So she's like, I'm going to go out and I'm going to start doing CrossFit to learn these moves and so I can really understand how terrible they are. But she actually got addicted to CrossFit and loved doing it, realizing that you just need to hack how you're moving and how you're doing the things. You can go to wide leg stance and still engage the pelvic floor muscles. It's just all about your intention and learning about them. You can sit and engage your pelvic floor muscles. You can walk and engage your pelvic floor muscles. So walking can be destructive, or it could really build you up and make you stronger, all depending on how you're doing it. So it's less about the exercises you're doing. And I tend to think functional strength training, CrossFit style. I do less CrossFit style, but more. I do agree that like lifting weight up overhead, that's all increasing your load tolerance, your ability to resist gravity. And the more symmetry you have with chiropractic, the greater ability to resist gravity you're going to have. So, and also so like bone density, it's all good. We need to lift weights, and I agree with full body movements. Not a big fan of going to the gym, holding on to treadmills. You need to let go. You need more natural movement. You need whole body exercises. These machines, I don't think are doing people justice, and I don't think they're helping out in the long run because they're not natural movements per se. Not that throwing a bar overhead per se is a natural movement. I think JP Spears, if you ever watched him, he does comedy YouTube videos on a lot of natural health things like gluten-free and vegan eating, and he made one on CrossFit. It was just funny because you could tell that he does it just based on how he was doing the movements. But just making fun of it. I do box jumps to repair my body so I could do that one step that I have into the office every day. Yeah, it's easy to make fun of it, but there's a lot of truth there with trying to do more movements that your body actually does throughout the day anyways, like hinging at the hips to pick something over, or bending. So either we're bending at the spine, or we're actually using our hips, using our feet, using our shoulders as they were meant to, and teaching the spine to act like a stabilizing structure, which will all help the gut and the prostate in the long run. So again, there's another video on exercises alone there, covering some of these stuff. All right, and we'll talk about in that video some of these muscles, how to address one hip that's more restricted because the hips have so much connection to imbalancing one side of the pelvic floor. So some exercises to find out what's tight. We'll do supine leg trace. That's a foundation training move. And then some things I've learned from functional strength training to hit some of these muscles like obturator and turnus. All right. So back here, and then again we'll cover this in the breathing, or in the exercise video. But when we're doing foundation training, we always teach exhale on the exertion, or blow as you go. So we're lengthening the spine, pelvic floor is engaging as the hips pull in. Like I said, most people's hips are externally rotated, and we lose the pelvic floor engagement. So when and the cheerleader has trouble with, the cheerleader has trouble with this with the breathing because she extends here, so she can't engage because she really does this. Can't engage that diaphragm. So it's that combination of those two together. So the way he always described it was the measuring stick hands for the iliopsoas, and that's truer. But if you really think about, another way to think about it is the diaphragm and the pelvic floor muscles engaging together and lengthening, transverse abdominis pulling in, and then we're loading the whole spine, engaging those multifidus muscles. I had a patient today said she was doing the get out of pain challenge, showed me the reverse lunge, and she was just bending at the spine to do the reverse lunge. The hips weren't engaging. And that's all a failure to not hit these pelvic floor muscles and diaphragm together, hold and lock, engaging those pelvic floor to essentially support the spine. So we're getting them, our hips, pelvic floor muscles underneath the spine to drive upwards, and engaging the diaphragm. So our breathing, and you should feel that breath even into the pelvic floor muscles all the way down the spine. So many of us are breathing from the shoulders, especially the role model who is trying to, not the role model, the runway model. I keep doing that. She's not a role model because she's not doing it right. She is raising her shoulders to do her breathing. So she's utilizing the upper traps where the cheerleader is overusing the rhomboids, squeezing the shoulders back. So breathing. You know, Wim Hof, the Iceman, all about the breathing. Thinks it can cure cancer. He's probably right, because you're removing so much neurological stress. And once you do that, you can fight against any different pathology you got going on. You can essentially prevent anything. You won't even know what you prevented, because I mean, that's good. It's good that you won't know what you prevented. But a lot of people are like, well, breathing never saved you from cancer. Maybe it did. Who knows? So let's get a little more direct here and talk about everybody poops, right? So poor biomechanics leads to mechanical stress on the body and also neurological stress. So here's some really physical. This is the pubal rectalis muscle. In a squatting position, flat-foot squatting position, which is usually what most people use when they would defecate. They just have a hole in the ground and you'd squat over it. So you'd have to get in that hip hinge to get that full release. So what happens if we're not fully releasing the bowel and we're sitting on the porcelain throne? It's a bad angle. And so people are like, well, I have long legs. So that doesn't really count. You need to be in that squat position. And when we squat right and we're hinged forward, because when we're kind of back like that, again, it's the same problem, right? The shoulders are behind the hips, so pelvic floor is not engaged. But as soon as we pull the body over, because that's what you have to do, so you don't fall on your butt while you're trying to, you know what. So pelvic floor is engaged, which also is a urinary problem too, with the prostate, but also releasing the gut, releasing those bowels, letting everything come out, because if it's even just a little bit remains, that could break down the mucosal layer of the intestines, and we can get putrefaction and dysbiosis, essentially fermentation of the gut, changing the microbiome in the gut. And so you're not going to be breaking down food as you should, which means you're not going to be absorbing nutrients as you should. All comes back to mechanics. And then even allergies, like an example would be gluten. So if the mucosal layer is worn down from something like this, a small protein like gluten will pass right through a leaky gut syndrome into the muscular layer, where now your immune system is like, hey, foreign invader, let's attack. Anytime the immune system attacks, there's inflammation being generated. So irritable bowel syndrome right there, maybe. So the more we keep the gut happy through good proper motion, even motility of squatting throughout the day, not just how you're going to the bathroom, but trying to add in hinging motions is going to help get things. There's got a lot of intestine here, folks. There's a lot for it to go. So the more you're hinging at those hips, engaging those pelvic floor muscles, that's going to move things along, all right? So, and then some people feel gut problems as lower back joint problems, but also all our organs as well. If the gut's unhappy, this is your second brain. It's escaping me right now, but it has a lot to do with your immune system. And the second brain is really, it's in control of your immune system and how your body's handling things. And it's killing me that I can't remember what they call that. But the gut is important. So there's something to that gut feeling, that a lot of people have. A lot of people think that comes from almost being smarter. And the brain up here is the enteric nervous system. Is that what it's called? Enteric is gut. It's another word for intestine. So a lot of immune system related things happening down there. So there's inflammation and irritation. That could be a lot of autoimmune diseases related to just poor biomechanics on the enteric nervous system and releasing that gut properly, moving and breathing. And again, if there's changes to the spinal cord and the spinal column, that could lead to nerve stress. That's your chiropractic story. Pressure, subluxation on a nerve, leading to the target organ of the gut. Could always be that. I think we got a slide on that here in a second. Here's a better picture of it here at the bottom. Is that muscles come around that gut, and right above the pelvic floor here is the prostate, if you have one. And there's also some direct attachment from the pelvic floor muscles to the prostate itself. So that could cause stimulating. If you think about stimulating the prostate, some people go as far as to actually insert to stimulate if they feel like that helps the prostate. Well, you can do that without putting the finger up there, because that's not my go-to. Okay, I'd rather just move correctly, stimulate it that way, because movement is life. When things get stagnant, they're not moving as they should, they're prone to irritation and infection and all those lovely things. So even with prostate cancer, if you have to go with it, it's good to work on these Kegel type pelvic floor exercises before surgery, because after surgery they're definitely going to be weak, if they're not weak already, causing surgery. Because remember, they're causing the cancer, because cancer is not something that just happens. It takes many, many years. A lot of times they'll scare you too with cancer. You have time once you have been diagnosed with cancer. It's probably been there for a good 5 years at least. So I'd be like, oh no, I'm going to die tomorrow. Well, unless there's something that's really drastic happening and it's like the surgery needs to happen, you might have some time to deal with it in a more natural way. But I can't make any suggestion on what you should do there. It's just there are other alternatives. But definitely strengthen the pelvic floor muscles before, good 6 weeks before the surgery would help you out in the long run, help you recover. And again, we'll talk about this in the next video, but pulling the hips in, this is that psoas muscle. Not a pelvic floor muscle, but something that I really think about. I always taught the psoas engagement, but I also like thinking about pelvic floor and the diaphragm engaging. It's the same exact motion I've always taught, just sometimes when you imagine those muscles and you can see them, see the pictures and think about engaging them, it might click for you. Different ideas always click for people on how to engage these muscles, how to pull those hips into the socket and teach your body to decompress. Because there are so many tight muscles that are working against this motion. If it was easy to do, everyone would be going there automatically. But since they're so inhibited by hypertonicity and scar tissue, we can't engage these weaker muscles like we would want to help our spines. Another picture of those pelvic floor muscles. There's your sacral tailbone in the back. And a lot of connection is mainly these guys down here at the bottom near the coccyx area. Again, you might notice that a lot of us work there under spine. We'll spend some time in there and digging. I've had people had migraines go away just from working on these muscles. Sacrotuberous ligament is obviously it isn't a pelvic floor muscle, but connected to the coccyx and your sit bone. Could pull one side over the other, so the direction of that coccyx can really have a lot of dramatic stress on the nervous system as well. Somebody who's really stressed, I could usually feel that in the coccyx, because it's like a dog tucking its tail. It's like tucks that in there. You can tell it's scared, it's shaky, it's living in that fight or flight stage. And some people are just living there chronically, and it built up so much tension there, and scar tissue needs to go in there and break it up, so it can have a dramatic effect, just like an atlas adjustment would, moving stress. And that's where usually I'll target, because it's just an area that doesn't get a lot of attention from chiropractic, as it should. And chiropractors have been working for years will just ignore this area. And here's the spinal connection. So here's the sacral plexus coming down. So these are coming off your lumbars down into the sacrum here. So any inflammation here, from the gut could, it could be chicken or egg. It could be affecting sciatica issues, or pressure in the nerves could be affecting the pelvic floor function. These are nerves that go to the pelvic floor. So maybe if there's spinal subluxation, or you haven't taught your body how to decompress correctly, because a lot of people will bend from L4, L5, will kind of bow backwards a wink, if you will, with certain deadlifts and certain exercises. And definitely when people are leaning over, they'll tend to not hinge from the hips. They'll tend to bend from those lower lumbars, and that can irritate discs, which will irritate the nerves, which will affect the pelvic floor muscles. It could affect the spine up higher, where nerves are directly going to the gut. All that fun stuff. Here's some more slides. And all coming back to the numbness. All right, that's all we wanted to talk about today. Hopefully that was helpful. Essentially, it's as easy as this. Muscular imbalance leads to nerve stress. So the better we can realign those muscles, strengthen the weak ones, stretch the tight ones, learn to decompress, engage the pelvic floor, that's all going to help our gut health, our prostate health. And there's just some good slides on how it can directly affect it, not just indirectly. So there's a lot there. Hopefully that just encouraged you, again, to try again at foundation training. Always get better at the stance. I'm always learning myself, so don't give up on it. Eventually it will just click for you. So I've been Dr. Klein with Rimrock Wellness Center. I hope you enjoyed this information, and we'll have so in the playlist there should be an exercise video. After this, if there's not one there yet, it will be there soon. Signing off. Take care.